Okay, so now that we have selected what we want to take pictures of and we know what camera we're going to use to take the pictures, let's just talk about some very basic camera skills. And again, this is a passive income course, so I'm not going to get super in-depth into learning how to use a camera. I definitely do have other courses for that if you guys want to check that out. But I just want to give you guys kind of the minimum required to take a decent picture with everything we have going on. So I'm going to break this into three different sections. The first is a amateur and up type of section. This talks about just basic framing and very basic camera skills. Then I'll talk about a kind of a hobby and up section very briefly, and then a pro section, which just allows you guys to get the most out of your photos. So let's start with the just amateur and up section. So this is for people who are shooting on full auto mode. So whether this be on your phone or your camera, this is full auto mode, so I'm not going to get into any specifics on camera settings. But the important things to note for this full auto setting is when you go to take a picture, you're just really focusing on clarity. So let's say that a few weeks ago, I went out to Texas State University and I took some pictures on the university campus. So for me, clarity is so important. I am really focusing on Texas State logos, Texas State iconic buildings, and things like that. So again, not here to make any sort of fine art. We're just here to make money. We want the subject to be clear and understandable. Let's also talk about the difference between informative pictures and pictures with story. Both are good, and I think that you should definitely take both of these pictures when you are at a location. But knowing that there is a difference between informative pictures and pictures that tell a story will help you guys take better photos. So when I look here at my Texas State pictures, if you look at this second picture right here, it is just a picture of the Texas State sign. I would say that this really tells no story. This is just for if something happened at Texas State, this is kind of a blanket evergreen picture that if there's no picture for the specific incident that happened at Texas State, people could absolutely use this picture and it gets the job done. So this is a informative picture. I think you could argue this first picture right here could tell a story. Now, I took this picture during the pandemic of 2020 when there was controversy on if people were going to go back to school in August and September. And so I took this picture. It has the Texas State logo in the top left, but it also has an empty campus in the bottom right. So this picture, I would argue, tells a story. Now, if you were selecting this picture, what's interesting about this picture is it kind of does both, right? If you had a story about Texas State that had nothing to do with the pandemic or going back to school, you absolutely could use this picture. It's a nice picture of campus and the sign. But if you were telling the story of an empty campus, this picture also works for you. So that's interesting that it kind of gets best of both worlds, which is really effective. I think it's also important to talk about landscape orientation versus portrait orientation. From what I have seen and heard, landscape or shooting widthwise sells a lot more than shooting vertical or portrait. Now, I have not really ran any experiments or tests or anything trying to figure this out. I would say 98% of my pictures are landscape just because I've heard this before, and very few of mine are portrait. I have sold a couple portrait pictures. I sold a portrait picture of a vanilla latte sweetener that sold, and that was portrait. And so it does happen, but like I said, I've heard that landscape is the better way to go because most of these pictures are still going to be for newspapers or blogs or things like that in the traditional medium are still a little bit more width than they are up and down. Another thing I want to talk about is basic framing. And for this, I do a few tricks that are very easy to emulate. What I like to do when I'm there on my location, instead of taking a picture at eye level, I like to get a nice upward angle. So sometimes I put the camera on the ground, tilted up. It's usually about a foot or so off the ground. And what that allows me to do is to get some pictures, like this picture here of green. It's pronounced green, strangely enough. This picture here of the green sign, that sign is actually not very tall. I want to say that sign is maybe 4 feet tall. But when you look at it from this picture, it gives it a sense of importance and a bigger sense of weight behind it. And so these upward angles make these signs feel a little bit more powerful and just more photogenic and more interesting. So instead of a straightforward picture on the sign that I could have taken, I got it at an upward angle. And when you do the upward angle, it's always a little nice to have it off of a 45-degree angle as well. Like when you see this picture of North Texas there. So it's real close to the grass, as you can see. It's upward, but it's also at a 45-degree angle. And if you are doing that at the 45-degree angle, I think it's also important to note what is the important part of your subject. You know, not to get too artsy, but what story are you trying to tell? And so I put the camera on the right side here so you can see that North Texas, the text North Texas is getting bigger. And if I had put the camera on the left side closer to the where the text says University, it would say University big, and then it would trail off and get smaller as it says North Texas. Now I chose to put the camera closer to North Texas because that is the part of the picture that is more important there, right? It's the University of North Texas. I'm taking a picture for that university. I'm not taking a picture, for universities in general. So for me, North Texas here is more important than the word university. So just something small to think of when you're picking what side to do that 45-degree angle. Let's also talk about product POV. This is a little trick I found that does really well on social. Is like you see this picture of this Bluebell ice cream. It's just a picture like, from your own point of view holding a product. And that is a style of picture that's real popular right now, but also does really well on social. So really those two tricks on framing, the upward angle to the side is really nice, and the product POV. Those are two interesting ways of going about these pictures. We're taking very straightforward pictures here. So even if it's a picture like this Bluebell Creamery here on the left, I know that picture has sold fairly well, and that is a very not great picture. It's taken at a time of day where the shadows are kind of gross. It's flat. It's a little at an angle, but not really. Anyone could take that picture. So that was just a product of, again, supply and demand. How many pictures on Shutterstock are there of the Bluebell factory? 430. So I'm not competing against a lot. And when you scroll through these, you can see, half of these pictures aren't even about this place. A lot of these pictures. So really, I have 1, 2, but yeah, so I have, I don't know, a third or half of the top pictures here. So again, supply and demand really is king.